Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories. My name is Rob, and I will be your host, as always, for this evening. So every single Friday, we experience one chapter from one of my short stories. This Friday will be no different. Today, we will be experiencing Chapter 3 of my story, Confinement. If you haven't seen Chapters 1 and 2, I definitely recommend going back to watch the first two chapters before you watch this one, because you'll be kind of confused and not really understanding what's going on. Obviously, we're halfway done with the story, so like I said, it's very crucial. If you haven't checked it out, go back and check out chapters 1 and 2 before we get into this one. If you have watched so far, let me just say this chapter will be very crucial to the story. Yes, it's going to be a lot of information for you guys to check out. Real quick before we get into it, I do want to say we are on the road to 50 subscribers, trying to get to 50 subscribers by the end of January. If you could help me out with that, it would mean a lot to me. I'm not sure if we're going to get there. I'm a little nervous about that, but I'm still going to make a push for it, still going to try to get there, but I definitely need your guys' help. If you could, head down to the comment section, just click that subscribe button. It takes nothing but a second and is absolutely free. It would mean a lot to me if I could see the number 50 underneath the channel name by the end of January. So without further ado though, I'm going to waste no more of your time. Let's get into it. This is Chapter 3 of my story, Confinement. Confinement, Chapter 3. The next couple of nights were sleepless for Alex. She began to barricade herself in her room, putting all the furniture she could pile in front of the door. Every night for hours now, Baylor would attempt to break into the room, but with no success. However, this required her to stay up the entire time, pushing her body against the barricade as a last line of defense to ensure her brother couldn't enter. The anxiety was becoming too much for Alex to bear. She had to think of a better way to survive the night. She craved the idea of peace, even just for one night. Sitting on the hardwood floor of the bedroom, from sundown to sunup, along with the evil living in the same house as her, was making her go psychotic. One morning, when Nurse Rose arrived at the house, Alex would meet her at the front door, needing her help to follow her plans. "Good morning, Alex," says Rose. "Would you mind running to the hardware store for me as soon as possible?" asks Alex urgently. "Sure, sweetie," she responds. "What do you need from there?" "I made a list. I want to make a loft in my bedroom," she says with certainty. "A loft?" Nurse Rose asks with concern. "Yes, I used to have one back in college. It helped me sleep and gave me comfort. I would like to recreate it since I'm having so much trouble sleeping." "Okay, I guess. Are you sure you know how to do that?" "Yes, I can do it. I just need the supplies. Here's the list and money to pay for it." "What about the room? Won't it be a mess? I'm not sure many people would want a loft in their bedroom." "I'll fix everything when I get off house arrest. It's just what I need for now." "Okay, whatever you say. I'll run to the store in a little while after I make Baylor's breakfast," Nurse Rose finally agreed. A few hours later, Rose gets back from the hardware store with all the supplies that Alex requested. She began building this loft. While building, she was making a lot of noise along with beating and banging on the wall. She began to worry that what if Baylor had figured out what she was doing? He knew the water was running through the pipes that one night. That's how she got caught. She knew that if she wanted to save her life and her sanity, this may be the only way. Not only that, but it would completely change the layout of the room that Baylor was used to. After the whole day of working, Nurse Rose walks into Alex's room to see the finished product of her new loft. "Oh, wow, this is something," Nurse Rose says in an attempt to not sound mean. It was far from perfect, and an eyesore. It was a plank of wood running across the wall. It was hanging about a foot from the ceiling. Alex was putting a world of fate into the screws that were hanging to the planks on the wall. The only other thing keeping it up was a steel chain hanging down, holding the loft up, on the end that was not connected to the wall. "I put it up high so anyone can still walk under it," says Alex. "You'll be sleeping up there?" asks Rose. "Yes, I got my mattress up there. I'll spend my nights up there, and I'll feel more comfortable." "Whatever makes you happy, sweetie," says Nurse Rose while exiting the room and heading home for the night. After she left, Alex climbed her way slowly onto the loft for the first time. It seemed to be very unsturdy. Her arms began shaking while climbing up there. This was a tough task to begin with because of how high it was, and there was only room to lay down and absolutely nothing else. She rolled onto the loft and laid there for a few minutes while the loft stopped shaking. It was holding her weight, though. It was scary, but it was doing its job. Later that night, Alex was awoken by Baylor opening the door to her room. She had forgotten to lock the door. It was time to see if the loft was her safe place or her cause of death. Baylor walked in slowly and began walking to where the bed should be. Alex begins to worry that she may have not made it tall enough. If he hit his head on the loft, there was no way Alex would be able to get down in time and safely. Baylor encroached on where the loft was hanging. She was sweating, hoping he would walk right under it and not even notice it, his head inches away from the loft. He takes one final step and he slides right under. Another inch and a half down and the top of his head would have grazed the bottom of the loft. He bends down and starts feeling where the bed's supposed to be. He reaches around for a minute, clueless at why the bed was not there. He felt around the rest of the room, knowing the bed had to be there somewhere. But at last, it wasn't. At least anywhere on the ground, that is. Baylor exited the room, I guess thinking that his sister must have changed rooms and brought the bed with her. Alex was safe once again. This time, it may be the long-term solution. The loft ended up being the best move for Alex. She would continue to not lock the door, thinking that maybe that's what led Baylor to believe that she wasn't in the room. For the next 4 months, Baylor would enter the room every night looking for Alex. When he didn't feel the bed there, he would leave and check all the other rooms, but would fail to find her. With 1 month to go, Alex felt calm in the evening time. Her brother was clueless about her location, and she never felt safer. That was until one night. It must have been something she ate or drank. Her stomach started bubbling. She fought the sensation and the urge to use the bathroom, but in the end, she had no choice but to crawl out of the loft and head towards the bathroom. She made it in there, and when she stood up, she instinctively flushed the toilet, knowing if Baylor didn't know her location before, he did now. Alex began thinking of what to do. She listened closely as she could hear the faint footsteps walking close to the door. She had to be ready to attack the second the door opened, otherwise it may be her demise. Her plan was to bend down and lay low because when he attacks, it's always to the head and chest area. She may have an advantage being lower to the ground. She opens the door quickly, and she sees her brother standing in the doorway. He threw out his fist with a knife in his hand towards where her neck would have been, and missed. Alex then jumped towards her brother's chest, knocking him down to the ground. She kicked the knife out of his hand and ran towards the bedroom. As Baylor is looking for the knife on the ground, she made it back to the room. She closes the door, hops on the loft as quickly as she can. As she's scooting her way fully onto the mattress, Baylor walks in and begins running towards where she is. He almost makes contact with her foot that was hanging down, but Alex was able to move onto the loft before he reached it. Baylor searches the room once again, but finds nothing. He leaves, and Alex exhales her breath. It was hard to explain, but the comfort she had for the past few months and then escaping death once again, it gave her an adrenaline rush. She felt invincible. She had survived the past 5 months, and now with 1 month left, she didn't think anything could happen to her. She had learned her brother's patterns, rhythms, for everything. She knew his fighting style, and she figured out how to avoid all of his strikes. She would begin to use the bathroom if need be any given night. She even started making a game out of it. It was like playing a video game on adventure mode to her. She was so comfortable with her surroundings. She even started messing with Baylor when he came into the room and would drop water on his head. She would laugh hysterically at it. But when you poke the bear enough, it will eventually attack. With 3 days remaining in her house arrest sentence, Alex would get out of the loft again to use the bathroom, not caring about the thud when she got off the loft or about the flushing sound of the toilet or any other noise that would come from it. She would sit there and stare at the mirror and think of how she wanted to avoid her brother's attack this time. She decided to get on the vanity and open the door. When the door opened, Baylor leaped in trying to find her. She jumped down behind him and started running towards her room. But he must have felt the wind fall, and he was very close behind her. Alex did not have a lot of space, and she still had to get into her loft. She had to make one big jump and hope that it was enough to get out of the way of her chasing brother. Alex jumped in what felt like slow motion, and her body moved into the small space. She landed with 3/4 of her body on the loft, and was able to curl her legs up so that her brother would not feel where she went. She had evaded him finding the loft, but the bigger problem was the snapping sound of the chains holding the loft in the air. The loft fell violently towards the ground with Alex on it. When it landed, the only thing that she could hope was that Baylor had already run underneath and that he was trapped below. She turned her head slowly towards the door, and Baylor was standing there unharmed with the knife in the hand, and the chase was on. Alex sprung up as the knife rapidly was heading towards her. She pushed her brother down and ran out of the room. This could not be happening, days before she would be free, and back in her lavish lifestyle, free from ever seeing her brother again. She was panic-stricken, with the anxiety of being chased by the evil in her life. She ran through the house with Baylor chasing all over. She tried to make noises in other directions to throw her brother off, but nothing was working. I guess the entire time that she thought that she had figured him out, he was figuring out her even better. All the moves that helped her avoid her brother in recent weeks were failing. Alex knew there was only one way to possibly get away. She had to set off the alarm again and get Officer Chester there. She ran towards the door, but didn't realize Baylor had broken a vase. She stepped on all the broken glass, slicing her foot into a bloody mess. She fell to the ground in pain, screaming about her foot. Baylor then jumped on top of his sister and pinned her down. She couldn't move. Her arms were locked up by him, and she could only accept her fate. Just then, a possible prayer was answered as a light from the sun started creeping in the house. Nurse Rose was going to be there. The light hits Baylor on the shoulder. He turns his head and nods while raising the knife towards the sky. "You did this to me," says Baylor. He slits the throat of his sister. Alex would begin to struggle for air as the blood would run out of her throat and onto the floor. Baylor then feels the vibrations coming from the driveway. Nurse Rose was arriving. At this time, Baylor had gotten what he'd wanted in life and slit his own throat. Nurse Rose would arrive to find both siblings on the ground, dead. So that is going to do it for today. I hope that you guys did enjoy. I know it seems like, the story's kind of wrapped up, right? But I promise you, there's still one more chapter, and it's, again, kind of something you definitely want to come back for next week, because we find out the entire story. We find out what happened in the story Confinement. So just because you think it's done, I would recommend checking out next week, because I think it is in for quite a lot of twists and turns that you guys may not be ready for. But either way, I hope that you guys did enjoy. I ask that you do please click that subscribe button. Like I said earlier, we're trying to get to 50 subscribers by the end of January. Also, click that like button. I think it helps with the algorithm. Maybe not, but still means a lot to me to be able to see a thumbs up on that video as well. We make videos 3 times every single week. Every Monday we do an episode of Echoes of the Past, which is my paranormal haunted history location series that I do. Every single Wednesday we do an episode of Far From Fiction, which is my true crime series. And then, of course, every Friday is the Friday Night Campfire Stories, the namesake of the channel, where, like I said, next week we will be finishing up Confinement. But that will do it for today. Hope that you guys did enjoy. And as always, thank you for spending a little bit of your evening here with me.